Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to The Dream Life. On today's podcast, I have Jimmy Rex. He is the #1 agent in Utah, sold over 2,000 homes. But not only is he a top realtor, super badass, but he's actually a part of a super special ops team that saves the trafficked children and women all over the world. And I really want to get more into who you are as a person, and I know that you're this top realtor and that you save lives, and you're a part of one of the biggest organizations that is doing this right now, and that you also have your own podcast and you're in the speaking space as well, the Jimmy Rex Show. But before all of this, how did you become this amazing human being that is impacting people? Because when we first met, actually, we met at a basketball game in Utah. And you immediately showed me a video of a 14-year-old girl that had been trafficked since the age of 10 years old, and that had just been reunited with her mom after 4 years of being in the sex trafficking in Syria. What was it?
Yeah. In northern Iraq, yeah.
That's insane. So how did you even become all of this? Where did you start?
Yeah, no, well, so when it's one of the things that a lot of people have been saying the last about 2-3 years, like, man, you kind of came out of nowhere. And it's funny, I kind of feel like life has a couple, right? It's like, I'm like, oh man, I haven't even been working as hard the last 2 or 3 years as I was before that. But you kind of have these stages of life, I think. And I had stage 1 was you got to build something, right? Everybody wants to have an exceptional life. But you can't just, you see it with a lot with younger people in their early 20s now. They'll be on Instagram trying to talk about all this amazing stuff about life. And it's like, you haven't even lived yet. You kind of have to do it. I feel like you kind of have to live it first. And so at age 21, actually, I was selling steak and chicken door to door.
No way.
Yeah, and I started this company, and I was just gung-ho, and we were really good at it. And I had a partner from the Netherlands, and long story short, I took on 120 grand bank loans to buy our own walk-in freezers, our own trucks, our own vans. We wrapped them all.
And how old were you?
I was 21.
Wow, you were young.
Yeah, I was young. I was just hustling. I wanted to be retired by age 30, just forever.
Stop.
Oh, and I was dead set on it. And we were hustling. I mean, we were making good money, but I didn't know he had a drug problem.
Right.
And long story short, after about a year and a half with him, the money was all gone, and we were making a ton of money. And he just, we'd franchised it, and he took that money and went on a drug binge. And I got saddled with about 125 grand debt. And I was 23. I thought my life was over. When you're 23, you got that much. I mean, every person I knew had $125,000 more than me, basically.
Right, right.
And so I jumped into real estate when I was 24. And immediately hired a really good coach. I got lucky. He actually happened to be the best in the industry. I didn't know that at the time. And by the end of that first year, I had so much debt. I was willing. I was like, I'm going to work 70, 80 hours a week.
Wow.
I mean, I'd wake up in my suit all the time, from sleeping from the night before, And I put a poster board behind my wall. And every day every month when I'd pay off a new person a little bit more, I'd cross down how much I owed them, and then I'd put the new amount. And because I had this huge motivation going into real estate, I came out firing. In my first 2 years, I sold almost 150 homes.
So motivated.
Yeah, it was. I like to think I was just.
That's a huge number. I know people in real estate, and I know people that have had license that don't do anything with it.
Yeah, so my second year in real estate, I was one of the 2 finalists for Salesperson of the Year on the Board of Realtors, to give you an idea. And so, and I was 25. I mean, I was just hustling. I was good, and I had good coaching and.
What were some of the strategies that you used? How did you?
So my daily routine, the #1 thing was consistency over every single day. So no matter what, every single day I would get up, and by 7 o'clock I would be in the office, and I would practice what to say from 7 to 8. Because I was young, I was new, I had to learn it. So I had to learn what to say, and then I would just practice how to say it, saying it with confidence, right? Saying it so you are sharp, and so people that art of sales. And then from 8 to 12, I'd be on the phones calling for sale by owners. I mean,
were you listening, or were you educating yourself on these things? Were you reading books? How did you learn?
Yeah, so I actually, for about 8-9 years in a row, I read 100 books a year. I was religious. I love reading. I'm very curious about life. I took a test once that says, what's your #1 motivator? Mine's curiosity.
Right.
Which is kind of cool, right? So I just was curious. I was always reading. There was no podcast back then, but I had the books on tape. I have an entire box. I have them at my house. It's hilarious. I have hundreds. They were $50 a program at Barnes and Noble, but I would just go buy one after another. So if you have Audible today, you have such an advantage. Like I literally would, and it was like if somebody else borrowed your car, you'd have to figure out which CD you were on back when, because it would play without you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so I did that. I mean, I did that for years and years and years, and I built up, this really cool real estate business. And then, the market crashed in between there.
Right.
Shortly after I was having a lot of success. And so then I got saddled with all that. And so for years I was just grinding it. I think 7, 8, 9 years in, I finally got back to even on everything. And I was like, I was number one agent in my office, number one agent in the community for years, but still couldn't get ahead.
Right.
And it was like every time I thought I would, is new tax bill or $65,000 for my tuition to get my master's degree, just whatever it was, and then eventually, and then all of a sudden, one thing I did, and any listener this changed my life, so I'll share it. I don't actually share this very often, but I decided to start putting 25% of every check I made into a separate account in a separate bank. I had my assistant deposit it, and I pretended it wasn't there.
Right.
And after a couple of years, I had a lot of money in there. And so I started buying a lot of real estate, and back then there was a lot of bank deals, and so I started creating some really good income with that and some wealth with that. And then I've always been, again, trying to network and just meet exceptional people. I'm very fascinated by people that are doing cool things with their life. And so as I built this really cool friend network, long story short, I would go to a lot of networking meetings, and I went to this one. This is how I got into working with Operation Underground Railroad and the children, all this stuff with the sex trafficking and Child Liberation Foundation. But I heard this guy speak, this guy named Paul Hutchinson, and just totally inspired me. They'd gone to Colombia, they just rescued 75 kids that had been being sex trafficked. And I just went up to him and I said, you know what, I want to be a part of this, I'm in. And he was like, well, we've got hundreds of people that are willing to do this, like ex-Navy SEALs and police. And I'm like, yeah, but you just said you're a real estate guy. I'm a real estate guy, so I know there's a way to do it. Like, how do you do it?
Wow.
And he's like, well, and he tells me later, now he's one of my best friends. We just hosted this party last Saturday. Me and him hosted it, and we raised $125,000. That
was amazing. I saw the gala. That was amazing.
And so Paul's the guy that's kind of the head of our undercover team, and he's, I've personally been on 11 ops with him, and we've been able to help rescue over 100 kids. But the op you were talking about with ISIS, there was a 14-year-old girl, and I actually wasn't on that op, but there was two of my guys that are part of our little team. They flew over there, got a special team, went in and rescued this girl. They know basically how it works is in those parts of Iraq, they know when somebody's part of ISIS because they'll go away to fight, and then they come back, and all of a sudden they have these little kids with them that are like their slaves or sex slaves or whatever. And so they kind of will alert other people sometimes, the neighbors, and so our team knew where this girl was, where she was being held captive, and they went in, did the rescue, brought her, and so they'd rescued her family 4 years earlier. They moved them to Australia, but the girl, they couldn't get out, and they rescued the girl. And so the video I showed you was my friends, my two buddies, Paul and Andy, taking this girl, and Tim Ballard, who's the founder of Operation Underground Railroad, and they flew her to Australia to reunite her with her mom. And so pretty powerful stuff. I mean, my friends are, so when I first heard Paul talk about this, I just refused to go away, and he was blowing me off. He kept giving me like assignments, things to do, and I just kept doing them. I just kept over delivering. He's like, "Well, you can come to this dinner. It's $5,000 a person." I'm like, "Great, I'm in. Put me down."
Yeah.
He's like, "Okay, this guy's a little serious." And then he's like, sick. "You need to go train with this guy at Special Forces. It's basically like fight to kill training." And he's like, if you go do that, and I did it every day for like 6 months, and he's like,
that must have been the most badass training. I'm low-key jealous.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
Wow.
I've never had to use it, but the fact that I know how to use it, I think like you walk with a different confidence, and people just don't mess with you.
You have nothing to prove.
Yeah, I know.
You're like, I will kill you.
Well, it's like the whole premise of it is if you're getting in a fight, to get in a fight, you're an idiot. You shouldn't just get in a fight. Right. So if you actually are in a fight, it's because you have no other way out, and your life's on the line. So it's like brick to the head, go home kind of thing, like get out of the situation. So it's actually a really cool tactical training, but it's like you hopefully never have to use it.
Right. Absolutely. I agree. I've done Muay Thai for such a long time.
Yeah.
And it gives you this kind of confidence that you don't have anything to prove because you know that this will be done in like 1 second.
Well, and energy is such a real thing. I think people pick up if you have a scared energy versus like a confident energy. So they just know, like, I don't know why, but I'm going to leave that person alone. I'll go find
Why do you think bullies, they target certain people? They know who they can get away with it with, and others that they won't accept it. People do what you let them.
Yes. Well, sharks actually have a sense where if something's wounded, they know. They can actually tell. And I think humans on a subconscious level probably have a little bit of the same thing. So if you have a confidence, people know, like, okay, leave that person alone. But anyway, and so I got the opportunity finally after about a year. I got to go on that first op, and I speak Spanish. I went on a mission to Mexico for 2 years when I was 19 to 21, and so I learned Spanish. I'm fluent in Spanish, and anyway,
Amazing.
I just became an asset for the team and got to be a part of it. And now, it's fast forward 5 years, we've been a part of this, and it's been literally life-changing.
What is it like? Yeah, I was like, what is it like to be a part of something like that?
Yeah. Well, and what's cool, and like, because this is a cool part of the story, when I funded one of the missions, it came out of my emergency fund for real estate. Like at the time, real estate, when everything turned, and I have this saying in life, whatever you want more of, give it away. So if you need more time, give away your time. If you need more money, give away your money. Because what you'll discover is it actually is an abundance. You think it's scarce because you need more of it. And then when you give away the little you don't have to give away, you realize you still are fine.
Yes.
And so at that point, I gave away I wrote this check, I gave this money, and I'm telling you, like, the floodgates opened in my business. I ended up becoming the #1 realtor in Utah. And, this year, my team of 4 of us sold 285 homes.
Wow.
I sold the most expensive home in the history of Utah, $32 million.
I heard that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's huge.
But these things all happen because you change your mindset around them. And so when you give, like, people, I always say this to people, I said this at the charity auction, I said, if you don't have the money to give today, that's the very reason you should. Right. I truly believe that. It's not just like one of these things, because I did it and I saw how that works.
Well, it's the same story, of the Bible, with the two
talents.
The 2 talents.
Yeah.
Exactly, because I didn't want to call them coins, the 2 talents. So basically, it's how much it means to you. It's the value that it has to you, because we don't all have the same bank account, but it should be something that you reach for, that it's a little bit of a sacrifice that you're doing to sow into something that's a lot greater. And I think that we've also talked about that too off camera. It's just it's a blessing to be able to be a part of something like that. So even to know whatever they donated, can you imagine, that you're actually being a part of someone being saved from something like that, and that you're not the one that's going out there to go through the mission. And I know that it costs a lot of money to save these people, to get the technology and all that stuff. Can you tell me some of the stuff that it requires? Like, how do you guys even locate these people?
So there's one main organization that's the one that Tim Ballard founded, called Operation Underground Railroad. And that's kind of the main one. That was the first one, and everything else. And there's a movie actually coming out this spring with Jim Caviezel, The Count of Monte Cristo. He plays Tim in the movie, and
that's so
it's
cool.
called The Sound of Freedom. So you look for that. But Tim is one of my heroes. This guy has 7 kids. He was working for the government, and they identified, he worked in the trafficking and like child porn and that kind of stuff, and he identified some kids that were being trafficked. They knew where they were, but they weren't American kids, and so because he worked for the American government, he couldn't go do anything about it. And so this guy with 7 kids, literally quit his job, formed this organization, raised money through Glenn Beck and this guy Paul and some other people, and went on, ended up doing this rescue. The one in Colombia, they rescued 75 kids, was one of the first ones. And all of a sudden, that was how it kind of formed. And this guy was so inspired. They were doing an op in Haiti. I was actually in Haiti with him on this op. And Tim, there was an orphanage there, and there was a kid that had been kidnapped from the orphanage. It's one of the main stories that this group is trying to find to this day, trying to find this kid. But it's really inspired. His name's Gardy, and they work closely with the dad, this guy named Guesno. And, they weren't able to find Gardy yet, but they've been able to find so many other kids because of the inspiration of this kid. And it's kind of the dad, is like, but anyway, so they were in Haiti, and Tim saw these kids that had been trafficked, or that were being sold, little kids, and he decided to adopt them. So our organization, what we've, been able to do is, so you said what all goes into it. I told that story because the rescue itself, you have a team. So like us, we'll go down there. So we'll go to Latin America to a beach resort, right? And we'll go down to the beach, and it's taken us as short as 45 minutes and as long as 2 days to find traffickers. Basically, they come up and they offer you weed and blow, and you say, no, we're kind of here for girls or whatever else. That's what we're doing. And then we end up, they usually know somebody that introduces us to the trafficker. And so that's how we'll get it set up. Once we do the takedown, we work closely with the federal government, whatever country we're in. They come do the takedown, and we won't go into a country though, if they don't have rehab set up. So the majority, almost 90% of the money that is raised is for the rehabilitation of these girls and boys, but mostly young girls. And then on top of that, the new organization that's also part of it, after Tim did his own adoption, he realized how difficult it is. So there's another charity that we support called Children Need Families that Tim's wife, Catherine, started. And that helps with the actual adoption of the kids. And so I've had the opportunity to go on these buses where we break, the federal police break in and they arrest us and they arrest them. They take us to the airport, them to prison. The traffickers. I've also had the opportunity to do these ones where we go in and we surprise these families that have been trying to adopt and don't have the money or the resources to do it. We, let them know that we're going to basically, give them a scholarship to that. And so it's the gambit of what they're doing and what we've been able to do. It truly is like the coolest thing. And I kind of look every day, I'm just kind of like, wow, I have literally been able to be a part of this thing at such a high level, and we get to play James Bond on the weekend.
Real life change, really impacting lives, for the better. And just on so many levels, you're educating people, literally saving people, and also raising money to save more. So definitely for the people listening and watching, how can they be a part of something like that? Where can they donate to the missions?
Yeah.
And to learn more about these
So if
kids?
you go to Child Liberation Foundation, just Google that. That's the main organization that I work with that sponsors the others. But you can also go to OUR Rescue. That's Operation Underground Railroad. You can go to Children Need Families. These are all the foundations we work with.
That's amazing.
And the Nazarene Fund, that's the other one. So the Nazarene Fund was the group that goes into and rescues these kids from ISIS in Syria and Iraq and all that.
This is so insane. It's really sad that we live, that this is actually a reality, but it's so amazing that there are people like you and the group of people that you're working with that are making this, because like you said, the original story, when he saw that they told him no, that he couldn't save those children, he could have just kept doing his job, like so many of us that we're maybe restricted or we see an injustice and we just say okay. And and he saw an injustice, and because he chose to even just try or believe that he could save those children, look at what's come from it. And I'm sure because of it, thousands, millions of people will be affected.
Oh yeah, we've been able to rescue over 3,000 kids now. And you're right. It's like people always say, well, what can I do? It's like, just do something. You get to decide that. It's your life. What is your skill base? What are you good at? What is your influence?
Circle, and we all there's
just
so
start
many
doing
people
something
around us that need help. Our communities.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we look at other countries and things like that, but there's so much brokenness within our own communities, with our own families. We have circles of influence, and we also have a responsibility that's our family.
Yeah.
This is our community. So press into it. There are needs that need to be met.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, they say, well, what can I do to help? I said, I don't know your skill set. I don't know who you are. I don't know. I knew what I could do to help. I knew I could go undercover. I knew I could donate money. I knew I could throw parties and raise money.
You should know what you can do.
And so I did those things, right? And so I always tell anybody, if you're listening, what's your skill level? And it could be little things, it can be big things, and then just
great at organizing
take
events.
action, right? Just do it. So yeah, you don't need permission to do good, and that's one of the things I tell people, just go. There was an example, the game I went to with you, the jazz game, there was a little kid there that had been bullied. He was adopted from Haiti, which is close to my heart, obviously. Right. And he was in high school and he'd been getting bullied, a black kid in a white community. And I was reading the story online a couple days before that game, and it was just 250 people complaining about how bad this was. And I was sitting there and I'm like, well, we can change the narrative. Let's change the story. And I went to bed and I was laying in my bed and I was like, oh, I know I can do this. All right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go change the story. So I go downstairs. I texted 20 of my friends. A couple of them play for the Jazz. A couple of these guys I go undercover with, they're just badasses. They're the most connected dudes in the world. And within 12 hours, we had him on the front row meeting all the Jazz stars. We had him getting phone calls from 15 different celebrities, including NFL players. One of my best friends is Kyle Van Noy from the Patriots. This kid, we're throwing a party in next week at one of their school dances. We're providing dinner for the whole school, and we're going to show kindness is cool. That's the whole message. It's cool to be kind. And we were able to get this dude in some, just to do all these different things. And it was the entire narrative of the story changed. It was hey, Utah's not this horrible racist place. There was two idiots that threw some shit on this kid's car. That's the different story, right? And we were able to change the entire story, change hopefully the outcome for this kid forever. And I didn't need permission to do that. Somebody even asked, well, how did you get put in charge of this? I'm like, nobody put me in charge of this. I just did it, You
took initiative, and much like anything in life, you have to take initiative, taking action, and you were able just because you wanted to, just because you stepped out into it, you were able to change the narrative. And I do believe that you changed his life. You showed him goodness and kindness. Probably in one of like that's like the horrible, you know?
Yeah.
It's probably the worst day of his life, you know, so shameful and so embarrassed. And you made him like the coolest kid in school. And you actually shamed these kids in a very positive way, you know? Well, so, and honestly, anybody can do something like that. Like, we always can be uplifting and help other people. Obviously, not everybody has NFL players and
well, no,
and
but you start with something, right? Like, I didn't start with that. Right. Like, the first time I decided to do good, the true story is the whole way that the auction started, that, you know, we've now raised over $1 million in the 8 years I've done this. But the first year I did it, I was just sad because at Christmas time I was lonely, I was single, and I was like, I wanted to change my own story. So I was like, I'm going to do Sub for Santa. So I did a date auction with my friends. And long story short, it went really well, and I didn't have any influence then. It was, you know, I just did this. Our goal was to raise $1,500. Right. We ended up raising over 30 and gave Christmas to 200 kids, and it took off. But my point was, it was like, I knew I didn't have much influence. Right. I just wanted to do something to.
That's amazing. And you know what? There's something that I say that a lot of the times that a lot of us want to feel love, and, you know, or maybe we feel lonely or we don't feel love. But, you know, when you love on something or when you give love, you feel love also. Totally. You know, you feel that feeling that you want. So definitely, and back to the point of you saying like what you want more of, give more of. Right. And it's the same thing. Give more love, you feel more love. And also, even if you want to be included in something in unity, it starts with you. You know, so you really have to step out into the things that you want and have courage, because like you really have nothing to lose.
Yeah, and one of our sayings is our little group, our team, we call ourselves the Kick-Ass Kid Rescuers. That's on our text thread. That's the name of it. But they're just, these dudes are the best dudes in the world. They do anything for anybody. But we just say we do it because we can. Right. Like, if you can do something, do it. Like, we do it just simply because you can. And so like with this kid, like the narrative of the story was like, I did it because we could. Right. Frankly, like, I knew we could. I knew I could change that story, and so I did it. You know,
that's amazing. You know, and to the people listening and watching, like some of the things that you can do in your inner circle, or for people around you, like you're in a unique situation, in a unique environment for a reason, and, you know, we've been given, or, you know, blessed with these families or whatever circumstances that we have, and I think that it's our responsibility. You know, like, we're not just responsible for the energies that we bring, we're responsible for the energy that we allow in our space. And at the same time, if your mom comes in sad, or if you have a family member, like, we're God's hands and feet here on this earth. So if someone needs a hug, give them a hug. Someone needs to be visited in the hospital, you know, we are the ones that are called to do those kind of things. And I feel like maybe just feeling more called to those kind of things, because you could have seen that post and continue to swipe by, but you felt in some way, because you have power and because you have influence, because you know that you can really, you felt a responsibility to it. So I want people listening to understand that you can, so you should feel a responsibility to it, because you can. Like, why not?
Yeah, no, I was dating a girl one time. I'd been going on ops for about a year and a half at the time, and she goes, I don't want you to do it anymore. It's dangerous. It's like, it's scary for me. Like, let them go do it. How come she goes, how come they can't go do it? And I kind of laughed. I go, we are the they. Like, there is no they. Like, we are the they. And you know, that's one of my sayings, is we are the they. And so it's, you know, it's very close to me. It's like, we so often want change to happen in the world. We want change to occur around us. And it's like, well, you can change the world of everyone that's in your life by simply showing up a different way in your own life. And that changes the world. That changes their world. That changes your world. And so you don't have to change the whole world, but you can change a lot of people's worlds by simply recognizing that you are the they. Like, just go do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for being on my podcast and for spreading this knowledge and dropping these gems, because you're a true inspiration. That's why when I met you and me and you had that conversation, I was like, you're amazing, and what you're doing is incredible. And I feel like so many people, you know, we want to have an impact, we want to be a part of something like that, and really the organization kind of gives us an opportunity to, by partnering with you guys, by donating. So I encourage you guys listening to donate to this organization. You guys are what was it that you told me that you guys are like the top?
Operation Underground is one of the most funded 501c3s in the country right now. Yeah, just because we got Tony Robbins behind us, and Pittsburgh Steelers partners. There's a lot of really neat, special people have. A lot of people believe in you. Well, and it's a cause that crosses boundaries of Republican, Democrat, black, white. Everybody's in on this thing together. So
I love that. And it's like a global thing.
It is.
It's past America. It's past all of that. So I love that. You're amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right, guys, we're going to end it there.